episode of the Sri Lankan Understanding, a program where we are exploring things about Sri Lanka, and our segments we are looking at understanding the past, history, archaeological past and culture, so that we can, if we know where we come from, we will know where we are going. So my name is Lilanka Botejue. I am a tea trainer and marketer by day. I'm a writing owl by night, and I have a passion for archaeology, which I follow through an MSc in it, so I follow that on the side. And today's episode is really a very exciting one. We are here at the beautiful Mount Lavinia Hotel, and our episode today is going to focus on Sir Thomas Maitland, who was the governor here at this property when this was the governor's house, and the legend associated with him to do with a lady called Lavinia upon Suva. So with me here I have today Chryshane. Chryshane,
right. So I'm Chryshane Mendis. I work in cultural diplomacy during the day, and like Lilanka in the night, I am an independent researcher in archaeology and history. And so I too completed my postgraduate studies in archaeology, and I focus more on military landscapes and fortifications. But of course, I'm open to anything historical, so that's why we're here in this episode.
And so today we are here at Mount Lavinia Hotel, but where did the name Mount Lavinia come from? And we know it as Galkissa in Sinhala.
Yes.
So we are going to explore a little bit first about why Galkissa and Mount Lavinia, because they're two totally different names.
Yeah, because normally you wouldn't expect a place name to have separate English one names, and a singular one.
So Galkissa, Chryshane, what have you found out about it?
Well, just doing some cursory reading, I found out that so even through my research in Dutch period maps, this area is designated as Galkissa.
Right.
So that probably originates for a couple of 100 years ago. And it makes sense because this area is full of rocks especially
and
this
boulders and
boulders.
Things, yes.
And so the story goes that there are a couple of stories actually.
Okay.
So one thing is Galkissa means Galvissa, or 20 rocks, or rocks of 20. And the other one is that while probably the larger area was known as Galkissa, there's the other one about the key.
Yes. So we read about so when you say apparently there is a obsolete Sinhala word, you know, Sinhala also as a language has evolved a lot. So they said Gal Kessa, being an old obsolete word for key. So there was a key to the rock here, and under these rocks was some treasure. Yes. And this was written by a researcher. So we don't know how true these are, but these are of course legends. So hence that's how the name Gal Kessa came about, which later on evolved to Galkissa, right? And I think there are Dutch versions of it, no? Galkist,
different pronunciations.
So the way how the different European researchers have written it.
Yes.
So Galkissa then also had another name, right? The outcrop here, what was it called?
It was called Lihinia Gala or Lihinia Kanda. Again, two different names, but of course they mean the same thing.
And Lihinia is to do with the seagull, right? Because this is by the ocean, and of course you get seagulls. So maybe there were seagulls perched on that outcrop, we don't know. Yeah. So Lihinia Gala, okay.
And so we possibly believe that this particular promontory would have been called by that name, but then of course this is more synonymous with the bungalow of the second British governor, Sir Thomas Maitland. So he comes in 1805, and then as soon as he comes, he gets fed up of his accommodation in the fort.
He doesn't like his Colombo. I mean, I think the letters we've read, it's like he's not very pleased with the accommodation. It's not suited for his standing. And so he wanted a better built place in Galkissa.
In Galkissa, and so then he purchased land here and builds the country house from which he most often resides. And then we read that there is a letter dated from October 1806. So within less than a year, he already builds the bungalow.
Which is really quite fast for that time.
Exactly.
Yeah, it was built very fast.
That's the first reference to Mount Lavinia, where he calls this house
Mount Lavinia. In his letter dated 1806, he mentions he's writing from Mount Lavinia.
Yes.
So
how did suddenly Galkissa become Mount Lavinia?
And
that's probably where we were discussing that maybe the Lihinia became Lavinia.
Because with a British accent, maybe say Lavinia. It sounds maybe similar or close by. That is one theory. But there is another interesting story. So we have, of course, the legend of Lovina upon Suva. So the story, of course, we will go into that a little bit more in detail because there's a lot of aspects of that here. But we couldn't find any kind of historical, like written resources to the legend of
at
Lovina.
least sort of contemporary to Maitland, I don't think so. What probably happened was, if at all this story is real, it probably survived sort of in village folklore and in oral history.
Yes.
And then maybe later period British writers wrote the story down.
Yes.
And that's where you would see documents coming, but I don't know. Maybe there are stuff in the National Archives which we can actually try to look for
it.
Whether during Maitland's time as governor, this story of this lady is referenced.
Yes. So her name was Lovina Aponsua, and the name Lovina, I mean, there are, I think we write it in English as Lovina, but it could have been Lovina, and maybe he pronounced it Lavinia.
Exactly.
Or Lavina or something. So we are assuming also that it could have been, because of course you are talking about 200 plus years of history.
Yes.
So the evolution of it, and of course understanding two different cultures. He's from a British background, she's a Sri Lankan woman. So the name Lovina may have been adapted to Lavinia, and then of course it lent itself in with the Lihinia and Lavinia, and then you had the name coming in Mount Lavinia.
Yeah.
Right. So I think, so that's what Chryshane and I were debating and asking ourselves, you know, how because this is something even in general, wherever you are living right now, the names have evolved so much.
Exactly.
Yes.
And there are some cases where you find 2-3 different origins for place names.
Yes.
So it's interesting.
It's an interesting thing.
And maybe there are different versions which we don't know of, which are still prevalent among the residents, older residents of
those
Mount
areas.
Lavinia, area.
Exactly.
Even here, you never know.
So any residents of Mount Lavinia, please go
if you
ask.
all do know.
Yeah, ask your great grandmothers or great grandfathers or anyone who's around, maybe even village folk, what the names were during that time. So we are going to head into a small commercial break, and we will be back with the story of Sir Thomas Maitland and Lovina. So we are back again with our episode on Sir Thomas Maitland and Lovina Aponsua, and the story about, well, their romance. Yep. So Chryshane, would you like to discuss with me what we've learned so far about Sir Thomas Maitland? We know was the British governor of Sri Lanka at the time in 1805, 1806. And there's a very famous legend or story that has come down the years, over 200 plus years, about his famed affair with this lady dancer called Lovina Aponsua. So, Chryshane, what is your view on this in terms of
well, I wouldn't say view, but of course what's available is that she was part of the Rodia caste, which is one of the lowest
caste. So Rodia, I think, I mean, though we'd like to say we don't talk about caste these days, it's very much there, but the Rodias were considered the lowest.
Sort of like the untouchable caste.
The untouchable caste.
And yet she also apparently had Portuguese ancestry.
Mixed ancestry. Possibly that may have been a reason for her belonging to that caste, because once upon a time you have the term is used is creolization of people were not considered pure. Therefore, when you're mixed, you were considered, lower than the pure people.
Different social constructs, they would have been put down the line.
Exactly.
And probably that's why her surname, if that was the truth,
Aponsua is a very...
Even still you find Aponso.
Aponso, which is a Portuguese origin name. Exactly.
So, that's probably her origin. And then apparently how he got to know her was that when he used to have audiences from local dance troupes.
Yes.
So her father owned one of these dance troupes, and she was the lead dancer. And that's how sort of the whole, he got mesmerized by her.
Yes.
And, but I think the more interesting part is where during this affair, the story goes that he built a tunnel from the bungalow to a well supposedly close to where she lived, where they can have this affair in secret.
And the exciting part is, part of the tunnel is still here in the hotel.
Yes, you can
so you can go and see it. It's just downstairs near the reception. On the side there's a little pond, and then there's a door there. I know I went in there quite intrigued. But did Sir Thomas Maitland actually build a tunnel to meet his lover?
Exactly. So like what we were discussing, like it wouldn't make, like the reason why he would have used a tunnel is to keep it secret, but then again, like obviously he didn't build the tunnel himself.
There were workers who built the tunnel.
And then it wouldn't have been a secret.
Yes, exactly. So I think Chryshane has a more interesting theory, which would fit in a historical archaeological context better.
So in a lot of areas of place histories, sometimes you find these different narratives of two different events actually being joined together for one. So what I believe was that the tunnel would have been actually a defense network of the governor's bungalow, because he was the British governor, and so the official governor's residence was inside the fort of Colombo. So then that's a protected space, whereas he decided to come about 12 kilometers away from the fort and build this.
And it's quite isolated, right? If you think at that time it wasn't commercial the way it is today.
Not so built up as then as now. So this was this. You had the governor living in this isolated bungalow away from the fort. So it made sense that in case there was a threat to his life, he would have a escape route.
Yes.
And so that's probably where the whole mysticism, maybe we were also then thinking, since the tunnel existed, you can't see it on top, maybe he actually used
the tunnel to meet her, because it may have even been a storage space for, or even military kind of thing, and so he would have just been like, oh great, there's a tunnel, right? And of course we had to look at the whole socio-cultural aspect of the fact that he was a British, a knight, from an aristocratic background, Norman descendant, and then he's having this clandestine little, affair with this low caste, considered.
So ideally, that would have been looked down upon by the
at that time,
British society.
Right? A mestizo dancer. So she would have had that exotic appeal, but at the same time, he would not have wanted to publicize this, and hence the tunnel would have been an ideal resource that he had available to him, where he could use it to go and meet her.
Definitely.
And they say it came out near a well, I believe.
Yes,
near where
I think it's still known, the land where that well is. I remember about 10 years ago, there was a documentary made on this, and they actually traced that well, and it's the Kabuk Foundation are still visible.
Oh, okay, great.
At least 10 years ago it was. I don't know now.
Hopefully they've preserved it.
But so that's also intriguing to see how this tunnel would have been linked to this love affair. And of course, it's all why sort of the later legend came that he built the tunnel for her, is because I think there is this whole romanticism when you say, you built a secret tunnel to see your lover.
Yes, to go and meet your lover. It's it's
a lovely story.
Yeah, it's a lovely story, and there's a lot of excitement and intrigue associated with it.
I've also, like I told you earlier, there was this rumor of a US president where a tunnel was built under the White House for his
to meet his
secret lover.
Lover, of course.
So anyway, not true, but
tunnels have always had a lot of intrigue, and of course, if you do visit the Mount Lavinia Hotel, I invite you to come and check it out, because I remember going in there. Of course, I went in with no romantic partner. I went in with my brother and my cousin, so hardly romantic. But of course, it was really quite intriguing because they've lit it really well.
Right. Yes.
So it's sort of like a little cavernous space. You can go in there.
But the full length of the tunnel is not there, because now the railway line also has bisected.
Exactly, and they said they came across bits of the tunnel when they were excavating to build the railway line. Yeah. So this is another point we will speak about a little later about preservation and things. But what is interesting here is, of course, this legend and the story that has endured for 200 plus years, which is a long time,
exactly,
right?
And it has also really given character to this area, because the moment you say Mount Lavinia, you think of the hotel, and
the hotel,
and I think almost everyone knows that the hotel originated from Maitland's bungalow.
Yes.
So it's a very well.
It's an interesting
story.
And Sir Thomas Maitland never married. So he had apparently had this affair with Lovina for 7 years. And then he moved to Malta.
Yes.
And I think he passed away there after a brief illness. So he was a man in his mid-40s when he came here.
Arrived in his 40s.
So he would have passed away in his 50s.
And so for that also I've read these stories where the reason why he didn't remarry is because he was missing her and
so maybe it was true love.
You never know. Exactly.
Yeah, you never know. So we are heading into a commercial break now, and we'll be back again on the story of the Mount Lavinia Hotel. Stay tuned. Hi, we are back again on the exciting story of Sir Thomas Maitland with his sobriquet King Tom. And his purported affair with Lovina Aponsua, a girl from the Galkissa area. So Chryshane, now we've spoken about, you know, the interesting factor of their relationship and of course the tunnel of love. If you ever come to Mount Lavinia Hotel, please do visit the remnants of that tunnel. And now we're going to talk a little bit about this wonderful bungalow, which is no longer a bungalow, it's a hotel, but what it was, the governor's mansion.
Yeah.
And of course, as a heritage, you know, what
Exactly.
it means to us as Sri Lankans and then as to the people of Galkissa as well.
Yeah, definitely. And so of course this was made a hotel much later and
Yes.
like went through various functions. It was sort of the country residence for a couple of the British governors, including the
So,
famous ones, infamous ones, I would say, like Robert Brownrigg and
yes.
everyone. But then it was used as a boarding house, and then it was partly abandoned. And only I think in 1877 that it becomes a hotel. So possibly then there would have been lots of modifications done to the place. But I feel especially the room we are in
Yes.
is part of that old house. So
Yes.
So
this is
I've
Maitland's state room that we are in right now.
exactly. And
So-
I've always had this, I've come here numerous times, but I've never been able to wrap my head around what is the sort of the older part of the hotel.
Hotel.
But actually, if you really open your eyes and walk around, you would understand where you are. And
Yes.
that's also another intriguing moment is as a place of significance is this is the place where the British governor Robert Brownrigg, he was the third governor, met the ex-Adigar of Kandy, Ahalepola, Nilame, for the first time when Ahalepola defected from the Kandian kingdom and came to the British. And there is the story goes that when Ahalepola got to know that his family was killed in Kandy, he came to meet Robert Brownrigg and his wife over here, and they met near the gate.
The gates
and
of Mount Lavinia, yes.
Exactly. And
yeah, so
that's something very much interesting. Like we all, I mean, most of the people around Colombo would have come at some point in their lives to Mount Lavinia Hotel
for a wedding or something.
mostly for weddings.
Yes, yes.
And
Or to the little hut.
oh yes. And yet you will realize that this place has so much of history in it, like
Yes.
the different people. Like even I think after it became a hotel, I read somewhere there were several famous personalities that stayed here in the hotel,
Yes.
including Yuri Gagarin, the
Yes.
Russian cosmonaut.
I think the pictures are downstairs.
Oh yes,
Yeah,
so,
you can see
So I
them.
think like the Galle Face Hotel and the Grand Oriental Hotel, this was the next best
Yes.
place to come out of Colombo.
Colombo. And see, governors' residences in Sri Lanka, we take buildings of historical value if they're over 100
Yeah.
years, right? So they become sort of monuments and parts of our heritage. But a lot of us, because we live in Colombo, I think we assume immediately, I guess it's a perception. When you think of a historical site, you think Anuradhapura, Polonnaruwa,
Exactly.
right? Kandy. And Colombo was just like it sprouted up in the last 50 years.
Yeah, okay,
which is
there's
not
an
the
old building here, but
there's an old building like fort, okay, yeah, maybe some of those old Cargill's buildings, right, okay.
Right.
But we don't realize that that is very much a part of our history and culture too, and our living heritage.
Exactly. I mean, yeah, sure, they were built by the British, but then of course they were built by the local, physically built by the local people.
Exactly.
So, and that's
And
it's the part of the people that lived in Sri Lanka,
Sri
right?
Lanka.
Whoever it was.
And if you take even, of course, how it changed over the years. So now we were reading accounts where it said this area, Galkissa, had like even spotted deer and some
Yes.
samba deer that lived, because we don't think of Colombo as being, you know, or even the suburbs of Colombo like Mount Lavinia or Galkissa being places that had nature or natural.
Or wild
these
animals. Like
wild
it's impossible
animals.
to imagine it now, but
Yes.
at least 150 years ago and beyond, there were.
That was the norm.
Like I mentioned to you, there was an interesting episode of a wild elephant in 1752.
Okay.
That he broke into the fort of Colombo.
Colombo.
I mean,
Okay.
and they had to chase him out.
Chase out the elephant.
The fact that there were wild elephants and deers, probably even leopards around this area is
crazy.
yeah, you
And we
can-
don't realize that, because see, that's, so at that time, if you consider now, when we think back about the beauty of this hotel and as a governor's holiday residence,
Yeah.
or like even an official residence, he chose a very isolated spot with a lot of beautiful nature around him.
Exactly, and
Right.
like even if in older maps or even in satellite images, when you look here, it's a very unique spot. That's what this whole
Lihiniagala comes
It's like
out
a
here.
high-rise rocky promontory around the coast, and so actually from here you can see very clearly Colombo Fort area.
Okay.
And then from it, there is like a small point here, and then
Okay.
towards, when you look the other side, you see the rest of the country.
And so wow. So that's
unique.
what, so there's a lot of what you call even geographical, location-wise
it's
significance.
a very unique spot. So
yeah. So, I mean, our invitation is to the people of Mount Lavinia. I mean, if you live here again, places like this are part of your living heritage, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, you don't have to have lived here 500 years to know that, or 200 years or whatever, but what you call home currently. So, like even how we discussed, you know, the origins of the name Galkissa, how it became Mount Lavinia, why is it two different names? Wherever you live, not just in these areas, I mean, we invite you to explore, because as informed citizens, if we know the value of the heritage we behold in the places we call home, you don't need to be turning to governments and, you know, top-down measures, because a lot of, I mean, Chryshane, you must be familiar with community-based preservation of historical and archaeological sites is a huge movement globally.
Exactly. So, like, even through my experiences, if the local people are willing to or wanting to protect a particular site, it's very easy even for the government authorities to preserve that, and in a sense that actually belongs to that community.
Exactly.
Like, even if it's not your ancestors that built it, so like your parents could have moved to Mount Lavinia or Galkissa decades ago, but you're born here.
Yes.
And this is your home.
This is your home.
So it's important to know the stories, the people that lived here before that, the place names.
Yes, and the legends. And of course, it's very exciting. I mean, I always laugh and come here and say, you know, that the legend of Sir Thomas Maitland. I mean, his nickname was King Tom. So King Tom and Lovina and their little clandestine affair kind of thing. I mean, it may have been 100% real or not, but see, this is also another aspect of historical, archaeological narratives merging together. But it's exciting, you know, in a world where we have so much cynicism and so much, you know, a lot of, you know, negative things happening. It's lovely to have a bit of a positive story.
Yeah, it brings a smile onto people's faces when you talk about this. And
so next time you come to the Mount Lavinia Hotel, we invite you to, you know, explore a little bit, look beyond, and maybe you can hire the Maitland stateroom for a wedding. I mean, it makes sense. And there are the portraits of Sir Thomas Maitland and a depiction of what I think they would have seen, what's her name, Lovina upon. So I don't think, we don't know how accurate it is. But yeah, come here, learn about your most recent history and your history, and yeah, be a part of the living heritage and be active in preserving it. So that is our invitation to you, so that we have community-based preservation of archaeological and historical sites. So that is the conclusion of us.
And we will see you at the next episode. We have lots more topics.
We have lots more to talk about the history and the culture and the archaeology of Sri Lanka, understanding the past so that we understand our future better and we know where we are going. So thank you for joining.
Thank you.